and that has to be dealt with. So I think that's the issue for 2012. Who's really running things? What is their technology? What's their end game? And how do we build a new alignment? Because I don't think depopulation is the answer. I think their global vision of a carbon tax and patented seed supply is, it is a slavery state. Your expression of prison planet is very prescient. And so we're not planning on having a prison planet, and I think that's the discussion that's going to emerge. But it starts with saying these guys are really that dark, and they're really that centralized, and we need to emerge a different plan.
Well, I mean, the 6,000 superclass is pretty heavy information that Rothkopf, the head of the Kissinger Group, wrote about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a best-selling book he put out. He describes it as 6,000 super technocrats that know their specialties, and then they basically work for subsidiary corporations of the big 6 global mega banks. And so there are the big 6 mega banks. You see a Bilderberg Group meeting, out of 130 people, 65, 70 or more are Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. And from my research, it is a technocratic eugenics body that the British royalty and the Dutch royalty funded. Hitler was a spinoff of that. They had to shut down because he went too fast. And you've got these mega banks that then finance a centralization model, and the cosmology excuse for just being predatory psychopaths is, well, there's too many humans. That's just kind of the rationale. But then they don't even really follow their larger plan. It's just mainly a giant system of domination.
But let me mention a couple things, because there has grown up in the bubble of the last 20 years an arrogance that there wasn't before. But to the extent that I've dealt with the people in that group, I've found a great deal of enlightenment and a lot of fine people who also felt that they were a prisoner of the system. And what I will say is that I've found the corruption to be ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And what you see at the top level is a real fear of people at the bottom level and not believing it's possible to come into some alignment, which is also financially and economically sustainable. In other words, they don't see a way to stay in a leadership position and get us from here to there.
No, I get it. I mean, I get it. Every revolutionary is a secret aristocrat. That's their view. They think that anybody who's fighting their structure just wants the power. And there is the unwashed masses, and there are a lot of terrible people in the blue collar, white collar, mid and lower levels. I get all that. Right. And then so the ruler's view is we've got to go ahead and be dark and evil so we can control it, because there's something 10 times worse waiting if we don't. And I agree with what you just said. Humans really are individuals, but we form colony groups. And it's kind of like Kissinger talked about, it's a wild beast out of control. Individually, there are even a lot of people in the power elite that I've talked to off record as a journalist. They say it's off record, so it is off record. They don't like what's happening. They're upset by it, and they're saying, look, we're not all bad. This is like a system that's self-fulfilling. And so there is some truth to what some would say, well, we consume too much, but then that gets co-opted as a way to just tax people and shut down basic human activity. Right. So the problem is there's always some really corrupt individual who will take any good thing you try to do and twist it for their own gain, so that there's the fact that corrupt people won't ever follow any decent rules, and so they always seem to govern the decision, and the worst then becomes the trailblazer in the development of the species. I mean, I'm ranting. I'm trying to answer your question.
No, it's good. But I think, what we need in 2012 is we need power. So the fundamental issue is, well, since we don't know who's really in charge and why they're behaving like this, is we need to get power over our circumstance. And power starts with saying, something? I believe that there is a way to decentralize and do so in a wealth-creating way, and I refuse to be part of the madness, so I'm going to shift. And I don't control anybody else, but I do control myself, so I'm going to become more coherent. I'm going to function in a way where I make my money by doing something that's both decentralized and wealth producing. And as every one of us does that, and every one of us becomes more resilient and starts to make the change ourselves. That shift in consciousness, Alex, can shift everything, because this is so centralized, which means if we act, if we act by shifting our own behavior, our own money, our own actions, our own transactions, there's no target. They don't have a way to shoot against us, if you will. And so a lot of the change has to come from massive cultural and financial change as we change the way we live.
So simply put, we have to change ourselves. It's an inside job. We've got to start actually voting with our dollars, building things locally, creating, and that will build a parallel system. The centralizers, they built their system parallel and then used government regulations and corporate largesse to transfer the old system to them. They've been waging war against a decentralized system. We just have to build new decentralized systems, and they'll never be able to control it.
They'll never be able to control it. If we, part of it is taking actions among ourselves. And the more we can circulate money and learn to circulate money among ourselves is great. If we start to pay attention to the municipal issues, so we're going to have to, our local elections, please God, this year we care more about our local elections than the federal election, because this is a trench warfare that also has to happen at the state and local level. So the reality is, if we're willing to shift consciousness, one of the things that science has shown is that our intention can change material reality. That's been proved. So if we're willing to shift both our consciousness, our actions, and our transactions, then they're too few. Now, what we need them to come out of the closet, because transparency has to show us who they are so we can withdraw support. In my lifetime, Alex, what I have seen among my family, my friends, those around me, is they continue to support these people. And we have to decide, are we going to support things which build up our wealth and power? Are we going to support the things that ultimately destroy our wealth and power? It's our choice, but we have to choose. Freedom is not free.
Well, but now we get down to the end game. We see that going along with the system before might short-term be okay. Now, if people continue to say yes, yes, yes to this out-of-control hurdling juggernaut, it's going to destroy us. I mean, to have them come out and say, we will secretly arrest citizens, we will torture you, we will do all of this, is a wake-up call. But that's because we've gotten so deep into this. If people think the last year was crazy, I mean, how crazy is the next year going to get?
Right. Although, I'm not particularly concerned about the FEMA camps or being targeted or any of those things, because if you look at how spread their resources are, these are people who are spread enormously thin. And so, that's why I come back to what is decentralizing and wealth building. It's hard for me to imagine that somebody's going to arrest you and torture you for doing community gardening. So I think what they're afraid of is real, riots and violence. So I don't think that capacity, I think that capacity is to put the fear of God in people, not because they have.
I agree with you. They admit the camps as they roll them out will be during collapse for all the homeless to stay in. And then, oh, by the way, there's a stockade for troublemakers. That's in the Emergency Center's Establishment Act, exactly what we had surmised. Exactly. They're not going to just say, we're coming to get you in our black uniforms. It's going to be, oh, we're here to help you. The Army's here because things are collapsing. In Illinois, in Louisiana, they have government state reps calling for troops as a way to save the public. Let the system in. I totally agree with you that's how the system is basically going to approach this. But they knew that as they imploded the economy, it would start causing the civil unrest. So, yeah, they're afraid of it at the middle level, but the dark, more sophisticated groups that are organizing all of this, they know full well. Take the IMF World Bank documents that Stiglitz, when he quit, suddenly got released 2002. It talks about the IMF riot, how once they implode economy, that's only phase one. They want the riots to further destroy confidence. They let the public burn themselves out over 6 months. Then they come in as the saviors, the bankers do, and buy it up for pennies on the dollar.
Well, let's look at how the money works, Alex. If you look at what technology can do to increase productivity, And if you look at what markets could do to unleash just productive behavior in this country, for the last 50 years, the politics has been let's pay people off with government money so they'll go along with doing things that are not productive. Okay. And so we have now an economy that's highly dependent on government checks. Every local county in this country is unbelievably dependent on federal government checks for activities which ultimately in aggregate are not productive and don't build an equity building, wealth building economy. Now, if instead you said, look, we're going to run things based on productivity and we're going to integrate technology and, something, we're going to stop doing all the things that are destroying technology. So, productivity. If you look at the things that are making my life difficult or your life difficult as a successful entrepreneur, from chemtrails being sprayed over our heads to unbelievably complex tax and regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So if we just take the handcuffs off, entrepreneurs can solve 90% of the problems in this country, particularly if they're allowed to use new technology. So there is no economic problem. We have a political problem. The politics are being run to shut down small business and to shut down entrepreneurship, to shut down learning by people. There is no economic problem. There's a political problem. That's the only problem.
Well, that's right. The monopoly men have government and mega corporations shutting down everything so they can consolidated and wrecking society. And we simply have to point out, in closing, look at this article right here. It says, reviving the world economy. Stand back, I'm a central banker. And it shows a patient on the table, I guess a famous Rembrandt, but now he's got defibrillators, and of course it's the joke on the people looking at it is it's a dead body. But he says, stand back, I'm a central banker. But you read the article, they imply the mega bankers are the ones that are going to fix this and that Larry Summers is going to fix it when they're the ones that got rid of Glass-Steagall. They're right. The Ponzi scheme operators who want to get everybody in debt to the stuff that they produced out of nothing. And now the whole world is held hostage, signed on to their garbage. But here they are in their own publications selling themselves as the savior. And so it's a propaganda war. We've got the truth. They've got the lies. But it isn't working anymore. Earlier I played a clip of Huntsman putting on an ad making fun of Ron Paul, mentioning that George Herbert Walker Bush called for a new world order. There is a new world order. They can't just ridicule us anymore. It isn't working anymore, Catherine.
It's called the break it, fix it. I break it and then I fix it. Then I'm the hero.
Yeah.
Right. So I agree it's not working, but the first step to real solutions, Alex, is when a broad group of and it's not activists who get it, it's the people on the line. Make no mistake about it, the people who run this country are the people who get the trains out, the people who keep the pipelines going. It's the people who do the day-to-day business of operations in this country. They're on the line. The reasons the unions had such a powerful impact is they changed the rules of what was going to go down on the line. And what has happened in the last year is the people on the line who really run things day to day, the engineers, the doctors, the lawyers, the baker,
candlestick maker.
People, right. Those people have started to realize this is perverted and nuts and we need to do something. And that consciousness, when the people on the line decide, hey, wait a minute. I was in Tennessee once and the head of the Tennessee Firearms pointed out that the number of gun permits had just passed the number of people who were the voting population. So we're talking about a change of consciousness on the line, which is very, those people are very quiet and very, they're just dealing day to day, taking care of their kids, taking care of their job. When they decide to change things, they have unbelievable power, and that's what we're going to see go into impact in 2012.
I agree, and here's what I hope in closing. I pray that, great, firearms are wonderful. I'm all about the Second Amendment. I'm all about defending ourselves if it comes down to that. But I'd rather not just sit back with the guns and the ammo as like our emotional salve. If it ever comes to it, I'm ready to go down a blaze of glory. As you said, I'd rather put the effort out now to create new industry, new media, new farming, new communications, new cultures based on liberty that will be so exciting and sexy compared
Right.
to the automaton New World Order Borg that everybody joins us. And we're seeing that right now with Ron Paul. We're seeing
Right.
that across the board, that really we are on the right track, and that's why the system is panicking. But in closing, I want your comment on that. What message should that send to the establishment that this isn't